It's interesting that you framed Apple as essentially a Chinese company, because in the editorial George Soros wrote, he makes the point that what BlackRock is doing is not just going to cause investors to lose money, but it's also a national security threat for the United States.
Yes.
So China's rise has not just served to, mask their illiberal intent. It's not just a matter of like getting communist officials rich and maybe persecuting Chinese people. It's a real threat to the United States.
Well, to freedom. It's a real threat to the EU, to Japan, any free country. The economic relationship with China is a threat. Probably the best example of it right now is Australia. Australia really is, China's its best customer. The Aussies don't threaten China in any way, but the prime minister had the temerity to call for an open investigation into the origins of COVID. Well, the last thing the Chinese want. And so China has responded by Australia ships shrimp, lobsters to China. Well, now they're dying on the dock because the Chinese are not unloading the shrimps. Australia ships wine to China, except now it doesn't because the Chinese have stopped accepting the wine. Coal, iron. China is slapping Australia all over the lot they know Australia is significantly dependent on exports to China. And so China is using that power to coerce the Aussies to shut up and be good boys. This is a hallmark of how how communist organizations operate, and it's certainly a hallmark of how the Chinese communist system operates. If I look at the Business Roundtable, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the U.S.-China Business Council, I look at the CEOs and the companies that are involved in those organizations. They are essentially agents of Beijing. Officials in Beijing will call in their guys in China and essentially tell them, this is what we need you to say to the U.S. Congress and to the White House. And they'll go say it. What really rubs me the wrong way is a guy like Tim Cook, when he goes up, or Tom Donahue, but he used to be the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And every time Tom gave a speech, he would describe himself as the voice of American business. And he would go up on the Hill in Congress to testify. And every time he testified, he would introduce himself as the voice of American business. Nonsense. Tom Donahue was the voice of Beijing. And the same is true of the Roundtable and of the U.S.-China Business Council. Wall Street, Hank Paulson, Larry Fink, Steve Schwarzman, all these guys on Wall Street, they're tools of the Chinese. The Chinese own them.
Do you think people like Tom Donahue and Larry Fink knew how much they were towing the party line? Or do you think that they just genuinely believe that they were representing the business interests of American corporations that wanted to make money in China?
I think that a combination of they wanted to make money in China. They themselves are ignorant pretty much of China and of the history and modus operandi of the Chinese Communist Party. They're told by a wide variety of experts, they're told that, hey, China's becoming a market, open market, capitalist economy, and they want to believe it, because if they don't believe it, then it's hard for them to make the money that they want to make. So they want to believe that, and they have a lot of advice along the lines telling them, yeah, they should believe it.
So it seems like in 2021, we can no longer operate under this disproved notion that if we do free trade with China, it will liberalize and it will make the U.S. money. It's been proven at this point that China is getting less liberal and it's killing the free world. So how can people still operate under that old Kissinger policy?
So it's increasingly difficult. But the way the discussion has trended is that, oh golly, yeah, maybe we made the wrong bet, as the economist said. But holy cow, decoupling now, it's really going to be expensive. I mean, we got billions of dollars invested over there. We're importing billions of dollars worth of goods. American consumers are getting cheap shirts and ties and whatever. And oh my God, how can we really decouple? I mean, maybe we can decouple a little bit on really high tech items, but so the debate, the struggle now really is. And that's why I bring up this issue of how many iPhones is Jimmy Lai's life worth, because it's really a struggle now between the cost, the financial cost of adopting a very different kind of policy and relationship, and the long-term, let's say, security of the U.S., of the free world, of maintaining the moral guideposts of the free world. It's in that tug of war there, and it's going to be I think it's going to be increasingly difficult for people like Think to maintain that they're just being good businessmen and investing in a market economy. I think it's going to be increasingly difficult.
But there's like this, you kind of bring up the sunk cost fallacy, like we're already invested, right? It's like, it's like you go to a movie and you're halfway through and it's, Mike and Dave need wedding dates and this is a horrible movie and why am I even here? It was a mistake to come here, but I already paid for the ticket. I got my popcorn.
Yeah.
I might as well just watch the rest of the movie, even though it's going to make me feel worse at the end.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like we're sitting in on that movie, but with China for 20 years.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And let me just add a dollop to that. Intel, as you probably know, has a new CEO, Pat Gelsinger. And so Pat is really wrestling with this issue right now. So let's say you're Pat Gelsinger. And, you're one of the three major semiconductor producers in the world. But China is a big market for you. And if you're going to do what you have to do to stay competitive, you're going to have to spend really big bucks on R&D and on capital investment over the next 10 to 15 years. Maybe a third of your global sales are in China. And so if you lose that third of your global sales, how are you going to get the money that make the earnings that will enable you to get the money to make the investments you have to make? And that's a very real, problem that these guys are facing.